The Galactic Games happened once every 50 standard cycles. Species from across the known universe gathered on the neutral world of Prime to compete in displays of strength, speed, intelligence, and endurance. For thousands of years, the same powerful species had dominated these games. Though with their 4 muscular arms and dense bone structure, crushed every strength competition. The beings of pure light and energy moved faster than most sensors could track. The massive creatures standing 12 feet tall with skin like stone seemed impossible to defeat in any physical contest. When humanity finally achieved faster-than-light travel and joined the Galactic Council, they were viewed as a curiosity at best. Most species considered them primitive. Humans were soft, fragile things with weak bodies and short. Their planet was small, their technology was new, and their physical abilities seemed laughable compared to the established galactic powers. The Council allowed Earth to send one representative to the Galactic Games, mostly as a diplomatic gesture. Nobody expected the human to survive past the first round. Stood in the massive stadium on Prime, surrounded by athletes who made him look like a child standing among giants. He was 32 years old, a marathon runner and triathlete from a small town in northern Canada. His selection for the Games had been controversial back on Earth. Many had argued that humanity should send their strongest weightlifter or fastest sprinter, but the committee had studied the events carefully. They knew humanity could not compete in pure strength or speed. They chose because he possessed something that the committee believed might be uniquely human. The opening ceremony displayed the wealth and power of the galactic community. Floating platforms carried representatives from over 300 species. Fireworks made of contained plasma lit up the artificial sky. The champion, a massive warrior named Val, raised all 4 of his arms to receive the cheering of the crowd. He had won the Games for the last 3 consecutive cycles. He looked down with something between amusement and pity. Kept his expression calm. He had prepared for this moment for 5 years. Every day he had trained in conditions that would have killed most humans. He had run through deserts when the temperature reached 130 degrees. He had climbed mountains in freezing storms. He had pushed his body to the absolute edge of human capability, then pushed further. His coaches had worried about him constantly. They did not understand that was not trying to become superhuman. He was simply trying to show the galaxy what a human already was. The first event was the Trial of Mountains. Competitors had to climb an artificially created peak that stretched 10,000 meters into the sky. The atmosphere grew thin. The temperature dropped below freezing. Sharp rocks and sudden gaps made every step dangerous. Most species brought specialized equipment. They simply walked through obstacles, their stone skin ignoring the cold and the sharp edges. They floated upward on currents of energy, had nothing but his climbing gear and his own 2 hands. The race began at dawn. Within the first hour, 3 competitors had fallen and been rescued by medical drones. A species of intelligent insects froze solid when they reached the higher altitudes. Their bodies were not designed for cold. The champion Val climbed with impressive speed, using his 4 arms to pull himself up faster than seemed possible. By midday, he had reached the 7,000-meter mark. The announcers declared that he would surely win, just as he always did. Was at 4,000 meters when his oxygen started running low. He had calculated exactly how much he would need, but the thin air was affecting him more than expected. His lungs burned. His fingers were numb. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to stop. He looked up at the peak, still impossibly far away, and he smiled. This was exactly what he had trained for. This was the moment when most beings would quit. He did not quit. Something strange began to happen as the hours passed. The champion, who had seemed so far ahead, started to slow. His muscles, designed for short bursts of incredible power, were beginning to fail. The whose stone skin protected them from everything found that the same density that made them strong also made them heavy. They struggled to pull themselves up the steep faces. The beings of energy discovered that the thin atmosphere disrupted their forms. One by one, the alien champions began to falter. Kept climbing. His pace was not fast, but it was steady. He took one step, then another, then another. When his hands bled from gripping sharp rocks, he wrapped them in cloth and continued. When his legs cramped so badly that he could barely stand, he rested for exactly 3 minutes, then continued. The galaxy watched in growing disbelief as this small, soft human passed competitor after competitor. Night fell on the mountain. The temperature dropped to -40 degrees. Most competitors had stopped to make camp or had been rescued by medical teams. The champion Val was stuck at the 8,000-meter mark, his body refusing to move any further. He had never experienced true exhaustion before. His species did not have the biological systems to handle prolonged stress. They were built for quick victories, not endless struggle. Reached Val's position at midnight. The warrior looked at the human with disbelief in his 6 eyes. How was this possible? The human should have died hours ago. He should have frozen or suffocated or simply collapsed from exhaustion. Instead, was still moving, still climbing, still pushing forward into the darkness. What the aliens did not understand was the thing that made humans different. It was not strength or speed or intelligence. It was persistence. Millions of years ago, on the hot plains of Africa, human ancestors had learned to hunt by simply following their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. No other species in the galaxy had evolved this way. No other species had developed the biological systems to keep pushing when every signal from their body told them to stop. Reached the summit as the sun rose. He was the only competitor to finish the trial of mountains. He stood at the top, his body broken and bleeding, and he raised his arms to the sky. In stadiums across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in stunned silence. This was not supposed to happen. This tiny, fragile human had defeated champions who had dominated the games for centuries. The next event was the trial of deserts. Competitors had to cross 500 kilometers of burning sand with limited supplies. The temperature during the day reached 70 degrees Celsius. There was no shade, no water, and no rest. They were confident. Heat could not harm beings made of energy. They believed their insect bodies would handle the environment easily. Nobody gave the human any chance at all. Walked into the desert with nothing but a canister of water and a thin sheet of reflective material. He moved at night when the temperature was survivable and rested during the day under his makeshift shelter. He rationed his water with mathematical precision. Every drop was measured. Every calorie was counted. He knew exactly how far he could push his body before it would fail. They discovered that the silicon sand interfered with their energy forms. They flickered and sparked, unable to maintain cohesion. They found that their insect bodies overheated rapidly. They had no sweat glands, no way to cool themselves. One by one, they collapsed and were rescued. The champion, who had entered the desert with determination to reclaim his honor, lasted 2 days before his massive muscles failed him completely. Without water and food in massive quantities, his body simply shut down. Walked for 7 days. He lost 15% of his body weight. His skin cracked and bled from the sun. His lips split open so badly that he could not close his mouth. But he kept walking, step after step after step. When he finally emerged from the desert on the other side, he was the only competitor to finish. Medical teams rushed to help him, amazed that he was still conscious. Back on Earth, people celebrated in the streets. Their representative had done the impossible twice. The final event was the Trial of Champions. It was the most brutal competition in the Galactic Games. Competitors had to complete a series of challenges that tested every aspect of physical and mental ability. They had to swim through toxic waters, climb through electrical fields, solve complex puzzles while under physical stress, and finally run 50 kilometers through varied terrain. The trial typically lasted 3 days. Many competitors did not survive. By this point, the entire galaxy was watching. He had become a symbol of something nobody had expected from humanity. The soft, fragile species that everyone had dismissed was proving to have a hidden strength that no one had imagined. Betting markets went wild. Some species wagered entire planetary economies on the outcome. The Trial of Champions began. Faced challenges that would have killed him instantly just months before. The toxic water burned his skin and made breathing difficult. The electrical fields caused his muscles to spasm painfully. The puzzles required concentration while his body screamed in agony. But he had trained for this. He had prepared his mind just as carefully as his body. He knew how to function through pain. He knew how to think clearly when every cell was begging for rest. The champion Val competed as well. He was determined to defeat the human. His honor demanded it. For 2 days he stayed ahead of. His superior strength let him power through obstacles that slowed the human. But on the 3rd day something changed. Val could not continue. His body simply stopped responding. He had pushed himself harder than any had ever pushed before, and he had found the limit of his species. Found Val collapsed on the trail. There was dying. His hearts were failing from the stress. Medical drones were minutes away, but minutes might be too long. Without hesitation, stopped. He picked up the massive alien, putting the 400-pound warrior across his shoulders, and he carried him to the nearest medical station. It cost him 2 hours. It cost him his lead. It might have cost him the victory. When finally crossed the finish line, he was in 2nd place. A species of amphibious beings had taken advantage of the delay, but something remarkable happened. The judges, after reviewing the footage, made an unprecedented decision. They awarded 1st place. His act of compassion, they declared, represented the true spirit of the Galactic Games better than any victory achieved through abandoning a fallen competitor. The galaxy erupted. Some species protested the decision, others celebrated it, but everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage in a way nobody had expected. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not but they possessed something that made them unique among all the species of the known universe. They possessed the will to never stop pushing forward. Returned to Earth as the most famous human who had ever lived. He gave speeches about endurance, about compassion, about the human spirit. He told people that what he had done was not special. It was simply human. Every person on Earth carried the same potential within them. They just had to find it. The Galactic Games changed after that year. New events were added that tested endurance rather than just strength or speed. Humans began winning consistently. Other species studied them, trying to understand their persistence. What they found amazed them. Humans were unique in the galaxy. They were the only species that had evolved to ignore the signals that told them to stop. They were the only species that could push past exhaustion, past pain, past every physical limit that nature had designed to protect them. Val became's closest friend in the years that followed. The warrior learned something about honor from the human who had saved his life. True strength, he realized, was not about defeating others. It was about never giving up, no matter what. It was about carrying your fallen enemies when they could no longer walk. It was about being human. And across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humanity began to watch them more carefully. These soft, fragile beings were more than they appeared. They were the species that never stopped. They were the species that carried the fallen. They were perhaps the most remarkable species the galaxy had ever known.